Welcome back. Now it's a great time to be a motorcyclist in India. Our showrooms are relatively awash with all sides of motorcycles of all kinds of engines, sizes and varieties. The thing is though, there's a lot more to riding or owning a large engine motorcycle than just tanking up and running in. So now that you've purchased your pride and joy and begin to figure out what to do with all that power at your disposal, there are a couple of essential parts that you must install on your motorcycle in case something horrible happens. Now these are aftermarket parts and can be fitted at a garage that specializes in sports bikes or from the dealer themselves. We made our way down to 7th Gear Customs, a bike shop in Mumbai with expert mechanics to get these safety features fixed onto a 2012 Kawasaki Ninja 650. Here are the parts needed: the rear spool, the frame sliders, the brake lines, and the shift sock. We met up with 7th Gear Customs Peter De Silva to take us through the installation process. Of all these parts to be installed, the frame sliders or crash protectors are perhaps the most important for the safety of your motorcycle. Sliders are made out of impact-absorbing material that grind down and prevent damage to the bike.
Namely, we have two types of crash guards, the cuts and the no cuts. Basically, the cut ones require drilling through the original fairing if your bike is a fully faired bike. Those both serve the same purpose, but only makes it easier to install the non-cut ones because it's a direct fit. There are quite a few brands. There's Puig, there's RNG. These are generally what is available to us.
Another important part to be fitted, especially on slightly lower end sports bikes, are the brake lines, particularly of the front brakes, because stock rubber lines might be adequate, but then you can never have enough braking.
General stock lines are completely rubber. The liquid inside the brake fluid is under pressure once you pump the brake. What happens is when you have the standard lines, they tend to flex in mm. It is not visible to the naked eye, but there is a difference when you install the aftermarket brake lines. It has a much better bite and it doesn't flex because they are braided, steel braided, and very importantly, they are strongly coated with synthetics.
The other two parts installed on this bike are less for safety and more for convenience: the rear spool and the shift sock. The rear spool fitted onto the swing arm makes it easy to mount the bike onto a racing stand. What many may not realize is that performance motorcycles, unlike commuter bikes, do not come with a central stand. So if you need to have the bike upright, you'll need to mount it onto a racing stand, and the spools will keep them stable. And finally, the shift sock. This funny looking rubber device fits over the bike's gear shifter and keeps your shoes clean. Moving on to something really special, we're talking with one of the greatest tennis players who ever walked the earth, Mr. Boris Becker. Today, however, we're not going to talk about tennis, we're going to talk to you about cars.
Please.
Now, it seems almost natural that you'll have one German legend, such as yourself, and another German legend, Mercedes-Benz, coming together. Was there any connection before your current association?
Well, this partnership, I call it, is over 17 years old. And in fact, I own 3 Mercedes-Benz car dealerships for 20 years.
Okay.
So it's not just we call each other family. We've been together for a long time. And Mercedes was different 20 years ago, so I was different. But it's a natural fit. Two German kind of famous brands being together here in India and promoting the new GL.
What's your earliest automotive memory from like childhood maybe? Or?
Well, I started young because I made my license at 16 in California.
Okay.
So my very first car I drove was a Mercedes, funny enough. It was a 190E. And when I was driving it, with 16, 17 in Germany, all the cops were looking, you're underage. But then I had the American license and the international one, so I was fine. But ever since back, I've been driving the car with the star, and I felt very good with it.
After you turned professional, which was the first car that you bought with your winnings, so to speak?
My first big winnings were, I guess, Wimbledon at 17. And I bought myself an SL. I didn't want to buy myself a 500 because I thought it was a bit too much for 17-year-olds. So in those days they had a 420. So that was my first car I bought.
Okay. And what are you driving at the time, right now?
Well, I'm a family guy. I have a couple of kids and a wife, so I'm a big fan of the GL actually. They came out a bit early in Germany and in England, and I've been driving that there. But if I'm just for myself, for fun, if I want to be an 18-year-old, I drive my SLS. That's a fun sports car.
Oh, so you have an SLS as well?
Yeah.
What kind? The Roadster or the convertible?
No. I have the Gullwing, the classical in silver. Yeah, the
Okay.
Roadster. Yeah.
So do you follow motorsports? What do you follow?
Of course.
Which one?
Well,
Exactly?
Formula One. I'm a big fan of Formula One for years. I go to to many races every year. In fact, next week I'm going to go to the Monte Carlo race, and I of course support, Mercedes-Benz, and I'm very happy that Lewis Hamilton is back. One of my favorite drivers of all time. With Nico Rosberg together, they built a very formidable team, and hopefully soon they will drive for the championship.
Surely you've had the opportunity. Have you got behind the wheel of one of these kind of sports cars yourself? I mean, motorsports cars yourself?
Well, I've shot a couple of TV commercials. So with Mika Hakkinen back in the day, you may remember him, the great film.
Of course.
But I'm quite big, so I don't fit in it comfortably to drive. So they had to put out the steering wheel for me to fit in. But for the TV shot, it looked good, but I couldn't drive with it. But I have been driving with Mika in some of the DTM cars, and they're almost as fast. So it's quite an experience.
So you actually drove a DTM car?
Yeah.
Where was this?
At the we have two famous tracks in Germany, the Hockenheimring and the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
And on both tracks, I was fortunate enough to drive it.
Okay. So now you've obviously traveled all over the world, driven everywhere. What's the most memorable driving experience that you have?
In fact, in India.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll tell you why. About 10 years ago, I was shooting a commercial with the agency person, and we shot not for cars but for clothing line. And it was the last evening of the shoot, and we went Delhi, and we had to go to Jaipur. And the plan was that in a chauffeur-driven Mercedes, I can sleep for 4 or 5 hours, and have the driver bring me there to start shooting in the morning. Well, after half an hour, I realized that driver's never driven an S-Class. So I felt very unsecure and unsafe, and I told the driver, listen, I want to be, if I'm dying, I want to be in control of it. So let me drive, and you go back. And he looked a bit bewildered.
Okay.
But I was driving for 4 hours at night from Delhi to Jaipur.
Okay.
When the agency saw me, they thought it was a joke. They must have changed the steering wheel around the corner. But two passengers inside sworn that I was driving the whole way.
Now, maybe when you were younger, was there ever a car that you thought you should buy, but maybe, better sense, or maybe it was too expensive and you just didn't end up buying it? Was there ever a car like that?
Well, in my early years as a teenager, I did drive the Porsche 959. In those days, it was the fastest street car in the world. And my mother fainted when I got that car, and I had to promise her that I have to sell this car as soon as possible. So after I've driven at top speed on the Italian highway, wasn't allowed, I made that promise reality, and I sold the car again. I have driven a Ferrari Testarossa, and my mother fainted again. So I had to give that car away as well. So I've been driving fast cars in my early years. Later on, I relaxed a little bit, and I'm comfortable with a GL. But now and then, I have to pick up my SLS.
You come from Germany, which is well known for its autobahns. In your youth, have you done any crazy stuff on those roads?
Well, not only when I was young. I would call myself quite an aggressive driver, if allowed. I'm obviously always within the rules. Now and then I break them, unfortunately, and I get penalized, and I have to pay a fine. Sorry, but when you love cars and you're on the German autobahn, you're just tempted sometimes that you want to give it a go. I knock on wood. I rate myself a safe driver, so usually when we go out at night, I don't drink then because I'm the designated driver. So my wife and my friends, they can have a wine or something, and I always drive home because they feel safe at night. I'm very passionate about cars. I always love cars, and whenever I get to drive one, I do.
Mr. Becker, Absolute honor, privilege
you.
to have you on our show. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank
All the
you.
best. And that was our show for this week. We've obviously had a great time making it. We hope you've had a good time watching. Remember, you can catch the entire episode online at timesnow.tv or youtube.com. Till next week then, ciao and take care.